Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the baseball podcast. Been a while, but here we are. Uh, I'm your co-host, Tom Quirk. I'm here with my other co-host, Ethan Pachersky, aka Ethan P. Ethan P, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would like to add that that's the worst thing ever, and let's please not do that.
That sounds good to me, Ethan P. So, do we have any
Wait,
special guests today,
is this like how we call Anakin Skywalker Mr. S?
Mr. S?
I, I really hate this, but if it's going to be a thing, I guess I'm powerless to stop it.
Yeah, well, hey, we don't know if it's gonna be a thing yet or not, but
Yeah,
so we have more than just us, obviously, because we need to have something to actually
yeah,
draw people in.
because nobody wants just us.
Yeah, I mean, some people do allegedly, but I would never say that because I want more than just us. And fortunately, I'm going to get my wish because we have Shawn Spradling coming on. Shawn is he's sort of the Rocky story of the World Baseball Classic, like press
Media
cycle.
coverage.
Yeah, because he started out doing these dream team graphics for the World Baseball Classic. So he would pick like Italy, and it'd be all the best players who could qualify for Italy if they just got their dream team. And he makes like a graphic, he puts them all around the field. It kind of looks like the depth chart if you pull it up on like MLB.com. So that was what he started doing. And then as he will tell you, he kind of just morphed into like, oh, now he's a source for people. And like, I don't know if he's the premier World Baseball Classic guy, but he's kind of like the premier, like one stop shop for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of the other guys who were covering it either cover just one team, like their own country, or they cover that as like, oh well, it's the off season, so I want to do some baseball stuff. So hey, Mike Trout joined Team USA, which is like, yeah, everybody watches baseball heard about that.
Right.
Yeah, that's not
Right.
groundbreaking.
Yeah. Sean's on top of things. And he also is really good at saying, I hear there's news coming out of Cuba today. And then a couple hours later you get it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. So he's really good at compiling all these sources together and just giving you what you need to know about the upcoming tournament. And he's also started doing videos of his thoughts on teams and how far they can go. So he's a great follow. You can find him on Twitter at Shawn_Spradling, and it's Shawn SHAWN, the correct way to spell it. You can find him on TikTok, same handle, I believe, Shawn_Spradling. So go find him there. He's got awesome WBC content, and I'm sure he's going to be doing something else too, because the WBC is on a 4-year cycle, and I personally don't want to see him go dormant for 3 years because he's just got awesome stuff to say.
Yeah,
So
he's a great guy. So
yeah, so I'm sure he'll be doing something about international baseball. Although we're kind of writing a check for him, and hopefully he cashes it. So
yeah,
so we'll see what
yeah.
he does. But anyway, go bother Shawn and tell him to start a podcast or YouTube channel or something, because he's great. But yeah, so we've got an interview with Shawn, just kind of talk about the WBC and sort of international baseball in general, but mostly WBC stuff. And we're just gonna get his thoughts on all these different countries, the tournament, how it's set up, that kind of thing. So
Mm.
if you
Yeah,
like WBC, this is the episode to listen to, because it's not just the two of us being idiots and speculating. It's a guy who really knows what he's talking about. So,
and the two of us being idiots and
and the two of us
speculation.
being idiots.
Yeah,
But that's more of
yeah,
a sideshow than the main event.
yeah. It's sort of like a writer,
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So
What
we
you will see at the end, also, if you're lucky, is we might discuss a little bit of where do we see the tournament going. We're not going to have power rankings because the teams aren't finalized yet, but we are going to talk about who do we think is going to win. Maybe a couple underdogs will break through, a couple of personal favorites. So
right.
stick around for the end.
Yeah. So it was an awesome chat, and I hope you guys enjoy our chat with Shawn. Otherwise, as for us, there's no plan. I don't have any news to give you or or schedule to give you. We're just doing this for fun in our free time. So
We're doing it in some of our free time.
yeah, some of our free time. Yeah. It has been 6 months since our last episode, and there's no reason for that. We just haven't gotten around to it. So if there's actually someone out there missing our podcast, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to let
You know what? I'm not sorry. Okay.
well,
I got a life outside this podcast,
I don't think
allegedly.
there's anything to worry about though, because I don't think anyone has been missing our dulcet tones. Um,
Right.
So yeah, so anyway, we're gonna have a blast talking to Shawn. I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you in a minute. Welcome back to the Baseball Podcast. We're here with Shawn Spradling, World Baseball Classic news extraordinaire. I don't know if you have a title, so I'm making one up for you.
I was about to say, I
Uh,
don't think I have a title,
Well,
so
now you
that's
do.
good enough.
well, you're handsome, so it doesn't matter.
Oh,
Anyway, so yeah, so we're here with Shawn, and we're just going to talk some World Baseball Classic. And before we started recording, we were talking about Shawn. How did this all start? Go ahead.
Yeah, so it really all started with and I don't know if we were following each other at this time yet, but it all started with the Dream Team graphics.
Yeah.
At one point, on baseball Twitter, people just kind of started talking about Team Dominican Republic. Like that was the team that everybody got hyped on. Like everybody knew that the US had a bunch of good players, but when they saw that, oh shoot, like this Team DR is actually going to be able to compete with like even the best of the best for the US. There was some buzz from some article, like different articles and journalists. I think Hector Gomez was the first person to like start posting like hypothetical lineups consistently, and he would even like retweet other people's like potential lineups for the Dominican Republic. And so at one point I was like, well, I'm a visual learner. I want to see this. I need to like see what it would look like on a diamond. So, and I kind of like, I dabble in graphic design a little bit. So I would just put together like a field. It was like the most janky, like just like straight lines and like just the names in each, just a white background,
Right.
super, it wasn't anything special. But I posted it. Hector Gomez retweeted it, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool because it's just like starting engagement. People are kind of talking about the team, what it could look like, people roasting me for like certain players that I put in where they wouldn't put people. There's plenty of opinions on how the lineup for every team should look. But
so you started the debate.
Exactly.
There you go.
After that, I was like, okay, well, if people are talking about this team, I'm sure every team could be the same way. So then I created like a dream team scenario of what every team in the WBC could look like if everyone that was eligible for the country committed to the team. And that's probably when Ethan, you and I connected first on Reddit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, what a wonderful place, Reddit. Huh?
Yeah. So much fun.
Oh,
yeah, it was I think because I'd kind of do a test run on the International Baseball Reddit channel before I put it on Twitter. I was like, how are people here going to feel about this? Because they probably care a little bit more than just general baseball fans that don't even know that Great Britain has a baseball team. So I like posted a bunch of the dream team rosters in there, got pretty good feedback, and then started moving over to Twitter. And then I honestly don't know how I transitioned into being like an everyday like news source for WBC content for people, but like I just started like sending out every commitment of anybody that I could find, like any player from different teams, tracked it through qualifying, and yeah, so I do some different graphics, like different dream teams, or like now the most recent one is I have a graphic of every team's player commitment so far, and those have been getting pretty good publicity because people, I think there are just a lot of visual learners that if you just see a list of names on Twitter, like it's not going to really do much for you unless you see like that player on a field with these other guys. Like, oh shoot, like Mike Trout is on the same team as Mookie Betts, who is also going to be in the same outfield as probably Kyle Tucker and like Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado. Seeing them all together is a lot different than just their names. So,
yeah, that's awesome, man. So and one of the things I think is really interesting is, like you said, you kind of went from, oh, here's a team that I think would be cool, to now I've noticed you'll start being like huge news coming for Cuba today. And then a couple hours later, it'll be like this guy committed or whatever. So I guess my question is, how do you find that out? Like, how do you get, I don't know if scoops is the right word, but like, how do you get this information?
Yeah, honestly, that's just kind of come along the way. Like I have no background in like journalism or like reporting. I just am a baseball fan that likes the WBC. And so kind of along the way of me posting just general WBC content, and this is what we were talking about off the camera as well. I'm like, I would call myself a perfectionist. And so normally everything needs to be perfect. Like my articles need to be perfect, and videos I put out, I want to be like everything perfect, me saying the exact words I want to convey. And like I edit everything exactly how I want it to. But with these tweets, I just try to send out as much as possible.
Right.
As long as I still want it to be accurate and true. I don't want to just tweet out rumors, but kind of just along the way over the last few months, people have DM'd me and been like, hey, did you see this article? Like this person committed, or hey, go follow this person. They have really good like Venezuelan content for like the Venezuelan baseball league, like different players in the league that have come over there. Or just whatever. Like a bunch of people have DM'd me, and then also I have just along the way have found, I guess, reporters from each country, each team like participating in the WBC that I found have been reliable. So the hard part, and I think this is probably why people have been really, I guess, responsive to the WBC content. There's not really any reporters who do a crossover from language to language. So there's like a ton of Japanese reporters that will send out Japanese WBC content. And then there's like some Dominican specific, like Spanish speaking Twitter pages. There's like a couple, maybe one or two guys like JP Morosi. He tweets out a lot of WBC content in English, but there's very few like crossovers. So I have to do a bunch of translating and having people help me translate.
Right.
But because of that, like no one on like the English speaking side of baseball Twitter knew that of like Japanese commitments recently, like Stephen Kwan, the fact that they were even recruiting him, and then like he's actually been added to the 50-man roster for Japan. No English outlet had published that, so when I tweeted that, it actually got a pretty big response because no one knew that was even an option.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, oh, I think I saw that somewhere, and then it was like, oh, I probably saw it on your Twitter account.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me, and this goes to something I guess that's bigger than just. Wow, I'm gonna sound like it's a conspiracy theory. It's bigger than just me and you, man.
Yeah, but man.
It does sound like I don't know if MLB maybe or the WBSC, but it sounds like there's this kind of general just lack of like marketing. Because if you think about it, like the NBA has the FIBA World Cup, and they're really, really good about being like Joe Ingles is playing for Australia, and people get really excited.
Yep.
MLB doesn't do that. Like Ohtani obviously is news, but if you're from Australia, right, and Liam Hendricks commits, that would be huge if you're from Australia. But people in the US don't really care.
Yeah.
So MLB sort of leaves that out, and I feel like that's perfect for you to jump in and be like, oh well, here's this commitment from this guy. So what do you think the MLB should be doing to improve this? Because I think obviously there's improvements to be made.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the whole reason that I'm doing this is, I think exactly the reason that we even have the World Baseball Classic is just to grow baseball across the world, like just globally throughout Europe, Africa, like all of Asia would be like, I would just love to see the game boom everywhere. But you're so right. The MLB, I don't know. It's kind of frustrating. It was frustrating at first, at least, because I would see like the MLB would tweet out every single U.S. commitment, which I'm a Team USA fan. I'm from America, so that's my team. So love that. But they would only tweet out the U.S. players that committed, and then like Shohei Ohtani, and I think maybe like Carlos Correa. That was like, we've had 5 to 10 players from like all of these other teams that have all committed, but no one, like the MLB has not tweeted any of them out. So I think if they just need to have maybe someone dedicated to tracking those commitments, or just tweet them out, because there's no one that is doing all of the commitments of every team altogether. Most pages have like one specific team that they focus on, but nothing like general WBC content.
There's no like aggregator so far, except for, kind of you.
Yeah. And it's kind of hard because I do have those player commitment graphics, which work for the most part for like Team USA or Team Israel, who also, like, if you look up like Israel's baseball Twitter, like they have sent out every player that's committed. But then you go to like the Dominican Republic or Venezuela or even like Japan, the teams that like, it doesn't matter who commits or not, everybody wants to play. Like all of the best players are going to want to play. So commitments aren't necessarily as important as who the team wants to bring. Okay. So like I could tweet out that like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, if he was added to the 50-man roster for Japan, which they've been recruiting him, like he might make the team, he might not, he probably would, but like the 28-man final roster. But if someone like that's like kind of on the fringe commits to Japan, DR, Venezuela, it's not as impactful as another country because everybody wants to play for them anyways.
It sounds to me like I guess we're just going to bash MLB here. And
yep. Yes, sir. Let's do it.
So, okay. So my understanding, and you probably know this too. My understanding is when they took baseball out of the Olympics, MLB was like, I guess it was Bud Selig at the time, was like, okay, well, we'll just do our own thing and make it like a global game. And I think that's a great idea. And obviously we love it, but they're not like marketing it that way. You know what I mean? Like I was saying. And I feel like it's one of those things where like it shouldn't fall on you to, I mean, I guess it's not falling on you because you don't have to do anything, but like it shouldn't be your job to market. You know, like you shouldn't be if that makes sense. So like
definitely.
Is that like an American failing? Because like you said, there are a lot of Spanish speaking and Japanese outlets that are doing it. Like, is it just people in the US don't care? Kind of like the World Cup, like the World Cup's huge around the world, but not in the US. Like, what do you think the problem is that the World Baseball Classic isn't as big as it should be? Or it could be a lot of things together.
I think it is a couple different things. From my understanding too, I believe that the WBC was born out of like, oh, not in the Olympics anymore. Like we need to fill that gap of international baseball somehow. We need to have our own tournament. And then like there's always been this goal to like be like the World Cup, but the marketing is totally lacking compared to the World Cup. Like if I don't know if you follow international soccer at all, but like there is World Cup content year round 24/7, even in the years that the tournament's not happening. Like it does not matter if it's 3 years away. Like there are always people covering it. Like there are full like YouTube channels dedicated to like, and granted there are like friendlies, like international friendlies that are always happening, or like qualifiers for the World Cup that baseball doesn't have. But there's, I honestly do think it is a MLB, and I guess we are going to just bash the MLB this time.
We are.
I think it is just like an MLB issue with marketing, which I mean we've talked about for forever with the MLB itself. Like they don't.
Yeah, that's not
players.
unique to the World Baseball Classic. They have a marketing issue with almost everything they get their hands on. So
because there are Japanese Twitter pages that I follow that like 10 minutes after they tweet out something about the WBC, there's already like 5,000 likes on it. So there are a ton of people in Japan that follow these pages. Or I don't know if y'all follow him. Hector Gomez tweets out like all like Latin American, Spanish speaking country WBC content as well as like MLB content. But I follow him and he's always on top of things. Or what's his name? I think it's Francis Romero recently, because of all of the commitments that Cuba has been receiving the last few days. I follow him and he tweets out all of Cuba's commitments. So it's not like every team has this issue. It's mostly just, I think the American baseball Twitter doesn't care. I think 2017 helped a ton. I think there's a lot more people that are excited now than before that, but there's still a long way to go.
Well, I think part of it, at least here, might be that like until 2017, even the players didn't take it seriously.
Yeah,
like the American team was a bunch of like B-tier guys.
Mark DeRosa.
In the first couple, it was kind of like it was a Kevin Youkilis, Mark DeRosa, like Jimmy Rollins, like when he was starting to get like kind of old, and it's like, okay, guys, we have like way better players than this, and we haven't sent one out. And then in 2017, they actually put out a good team, and they, and they won, and it was cool.
Yeah.
So, maybe, I mean, this year, the American team looks like it's going to be just absolutely loaded.
Yeah.
And it's going to have like, all stars. So maybe that will push up American interest in it more.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I hope so. This is like the first time that I think we've seen, I mean, I would probably say the best player eligible at every position on the field for the US. You could have some debates about like, I guess outfield now that Bryce Harper might not be playing. Well, I guess he's not playing with his surgery.
Oh no, Kyle Tucker. Yeah.
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 Dude,
Oh no, Kyle Tucker.
I guess we're just gonna have to get like the second best player at that position.
Like that's what we want. You know what I mean? Like that's what we want. Because even the 2017 team like had some holes. Like Adam Jones was good, Ian Kinsler was good and stuff, but they were still pitching like Pat Neshek. You know, it's and I know pitching's different because of the way it's set up, but like they were still playing Eric Hosmer, who like I don't like Eric Hosmer. I don't know about you, but like I don't like.
Talk about. I mean, he was B tier then. Now he's like D.
Yeah, now he's like F tier. Yeah, but like I think it's different now. Where now it's like Paul Goldschmidt, Will Smith. Like now they're having battles where it's like, who are you going to start, Real Muto or Will Smith? Like that's what you want, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that what you just said right there, they're going to have a battle between who do you want is what Twitter feeds on, and no one's talking about that. So like at one point I was like, here are Will Smith's stats. Here are JT Realmuto's stats. Who do you want to start for Team USA? And then people went crazy about that because all of the Dodgers fans were like, obviously there's only one catcher in all of baseball. It's Will Smith. And then all of the rest of baseball Twitter was like, no, JT Realmuto is the best catcher in baseball. So it just like that, people talk about it. But if no one is tweeting that out, if MLB is not tweeting that out, if Fox Sports MLB isn't tweeting that out, who is now like Fox Sports is going to have the full coverage in the US, so they should be tweeting out more as well. If no one's talking about that, then those conversations aren't happening.
Right. So let me get your thought. This is a little off topic, but I just wanted to ask you about it. One criticism that you see levied against the WBC a lot is people will say, well, it's not about citizenship. It's just about like random guys, you know? So Israel can have any Jewish guy, or this guy can play for like the Netherlands because his like great grandfather's Dutch or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. And some like, I understand the whole idea is baseball's very like segregated, for lack of a better term, to certain countries. And so other countries just aren't going to stand a chance when you go up against Japan and the US and that kind of thing. So you got to broaden the rules to get better players eligible. But some people really don't like that. Give me your opinion on the loose eligibility requirements.
I think y'all mentioned this in the episode that I listened to last time. I didn't realize how passionate people were one way or another about the eligibility rules. So I didn't even really think that was that big of a deal when I first started posting things. And then people were like, why the heck is this guy even on this team? Like he doesn't speak Spanish, or he's never been to Israel. I think that what y'all touched on, if you're going to grow baseball in a new country, you need more players than that new baseball country's own players to be able to compete in any realistic way. Like they're not going to make it through qualifiers, and they're never going to make it to the WBC if they don't have other Jewish players from the MLB to help them, like help prop them up and actually like succeed in the tournament. So I think for where baseball is globally right now and where the WBC is right now, I think it has to be more lenient. I think ideally, like someday down the road, we would like for it to be more like your own homegrown players represent more of the roster. So like in, I believe in like German soccer, you have to have like a certain amount of players on your team that are like actually homegrown from Germany. So maybe like something like that, like a quota of players on the roster. I don't know what that looks like, or if that's even like realistic or not. But I don't know, like the Czech Republic has all homegrown players, but if they could get a couple other MLB players to play with them, they might do even better. They don't need it. They qualified with all homegrown players, which is like such a cool story in itself. Whereas Germany didn't, even though like they have some good players from home, but they have other good like German descent players in the US. So I think where it is right now, it needs to be more lenient. And I like seeing the best product on the field, no matter what. So I want to see those players play for the countries. I'm Mexican American, so like I would play for the US, but if I had to play, like if they one option, if they needed me and baseball wasn't big in Mexico, I would probably play for Mexico because I still identify as Mexican too. So I don't know. It kind of bugs me when people are like, that dude's never been to Italy. Like he's not Italian. When clearly, if he's playing for Team Italy, he at least somewhat identifies as Italian.
Right. Yeah, it's not like a Polish American guy who's like, I'm just gonna get on the Italian roster just so I can play.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things, and I try to point this out to people anytime I see it on like Reddit or Twitter or whatever. But one of the things, because I remember reading about Israel and people would complain about this, and one of the things that was interesting to me was I think they earned like $1 million somewhere around there from like where they finished. There's like prize money, and it's
Yeah.
split. So half of it goes to the players. Great job, awesome. Here's some money, and then half of it goes to the program to like build baseball fields and pay for equipment and stuff. So it might be like a mercenary kind of mindset, but if you can get a better team and try and get more prize money to like grow the program, isn't that what you want to do?
That's the whole goal. Yeah.
The way that I look at it is that they have to get it to a point, like it probably would be better if they could do like homegrown players, but they do have to get it to a point where like if you're going to have a quota, like where it isn't just, oh, okay, then the United States is going to win or Japan's going to win, which admittedly, the tournament is a little bit still at that point anyway. But like if you have a homegrown player quota, then teams like Spain or like Great Britain, it's like, okay, well, then they're just never going to do anything.
Yeah.
The US, the Dominican Republic, and Japan are going to be even more the only ones that are ever going to have a chance. So until you get to a point where, yeah, you are growing the game there, then you probably do have to just go with like, listen, you have to just get the best players on the field,
Yeah, and I think that's more entertaining. You have the best players on the field for every team. It is, I guess, unfortunate for the teams that don't take, like for the Czech Republic, for example, like they're not going to really take any MLB players on their roster. Maybe like 1, 2, or like a couple affiliated players. I don't guess that they're going to do very well in the WBC because they don't have like super high level affiliate players. Not that that's like the only thing that matters, but I don't know. I think long term, if the WBC continues to succeed for years, the goal is to have as many homegrown players as possible, not for the tournament, but just as proof that baseball is even growing in that country. So I don't know. For now and for the foreseeable future, I'm all for Italian Americans playing for Italy or like Jewish Americans playing for Israel.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the thing that I always think about is I did a couple of articles on the Greek national team, and I talked to their manager and their GM and their bench coach, and they were always talking about how difficult it is to get guys to play in tournaments because you have to be a citizen to play in these European tournaments. And they were like, we don't have any money, so it's really expensive to like go to Greece and do these things and get your citizenship and everything. So they were like, we kind of just have to take what we can get. I mean, they didn't say that. Of course, they were like, oh, our guys are great. But like, you're not always going to get the best guys because people aren't going to deal with that, you know? But they were like, if we can get in the WBC, which they haven't yet, but they were like, if we can get in the WBC, then we could get like Moustakis and Mitch Haniger and I forget, like there were a couple other guys. I think Sam Huff on the Rangers is Greek. But they were like, we get all these guys and not have to make them go through all the shenanigans. You know what I mean? And just say you're in, So it's like I think it's good that way too, just for the program to like get the notoriety, And I remember one of the things that this guy said, the bench coach, which he was like, we sent Mike Moustakas some gear and he wore it around like batting practice, and we like put that all over social media. And I was like, that's
awesome.
Because if you're Mike Moustakas, it's like 10 seconds. You're like, all right, great, you put on the hat and you take a couple pictures. But then that's their marketing for like the next year. You know what I mean? Of being like, be like Moose.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I just disagree with people when they get all bummed about it. But I guess I understand, because if you're a fan from like the Dominican Republic, then you're like, well, these guys are cheating because all our guys are Dominican. So I don't know. It's just...
I didn't realize how much educating I feel like I would need to be doing on Twitter of the eligibility requirements, because almost every tweet's like, wait, that dude's not from that country. Why is he playing on their team? Did they just want to add him to the team with like no connection? But like I just didn't realize that there's no knowledge of like how the eligibility even works, because I don't know, it was weird.
Well, and the problem is it's different for every country, because the only rule really is be eligible to be a citizen. So I think you pointed out at one point that like the Netherlands is like really stringent. I don't remember what the rules were, but it was like really, really difficult. And then Israel, it's only up through your grandparents. And then after that, you don't qualify for law of return. So like Chris Bryant, I think, has a Jewish great grandparent, but that doesn't count. That's like one generation too far. But then I know, for talking to these Greek guys, it's like if you can point to anybody ever that's been Greek to make it work. So like it's different for everybody, which I guess benefits some people more than others. But like it's very confusing. Whereas the Olympics is just, do you have a passport? Great.
Yeah.
If not,
that's how Italy is too. it's just like find someone in your family that was Italian at one point and you're on the team pretty much.
It's like, hey, have you ever made a pizza before? Come on down.
Or eaten a pizza before.
Yeah. Listen, it comes with the DNA in it.
Yeah, the Netherlands, you're right. It is pretty different than a lot of the other countries that are in the tournament, because I didn't realize this until I looked it up, but their citizenship requirements, it's like your parents have to be from the Kingdom of the Netherlands, or you don't really, there's not really any way to get citizenship. It's pretty strict. Like even your grandparents, if your grandparents are from the Netherlands, you can't be a citizen. So now granted, they have like Curacao. So players from Curacao are on the Dutch team.
Right. Yeah, they're doing okay.
So they'll be fine. But it's interesting because like Italy, I had a heck of a time making that dream team roster, because it was like anybody that's Italian at one point, basically. So like none of these players that are actually going to be on the team, but they're all like eligible for Italy. And I don't even know if Mike Piazza's reached out to them or not, but it's interesting.
Well, it's hilarious because you'll get like Joey Lucchesi and Trey Mancini and Sam Hackett. And you're like, wait a minute, that one's not.
That's a weird one. That doesn't sound Italian.
So, Shawn, who do you like for the tournament? Who do you think is going to go further than anybody expects?
Yeah, so I mean, the two teams that everybody's freaking out about, Team USA and the Dominican Republic, are like obviously the two teams that I think most people expect to make it the farthest, make it to the championship. I think the two teams that are baseball countries that everybody knows have good teams, but I don't think that people realize how competitive they might be in the WBC are first Venezuela, and specifically because of their pitching. Actually, you could say this about both teams. Venezuela, I think it should be considered like a top tier team, like with those other teams.
Okay.
The reason for that, let me pull up the graphic. They are going to have a better pitching probably than the US, unless the US actually gets some like all-stars to commit at Mark DeRosa. Please hurry up and get pitching.
Merrill Kelly's not enough.
Yeah, Merrill Kelly's great for a game.
I like at Mark DeRosa.
Yeah, I've tweeted at him a couple times actually. So if you look at their rotation, they have so far just committed already, and this isn't including like other like rumored players or probably players that will probably commit. So they have Pablo Lopez, who's very solid in a WBC setting. Ranger Suarez, I know y'all are Phillies fans.
Yeah, we like Ranger.
Yeah, and Jesus Luzardo. So all two lefties. I don't think that any other team has two lefty starting pitchers, which is really interesting. I think that top three is one of the better top three like rotations in the tournament. The DR is absolutely stacked with their pitching. Mexico has really good pitchers too, but I think that they have a lineup also that is just like so contact hitter, like small ball. Like they have Jose Altuve, Luis Arias, Andres Jimenez, Miguel Rojas, like all of these guys that can just get on base, that I think that they can just really easily put together like a bunch of like inning by inning, like a run or two. And then I don't think that Pablo Lopez or Jesus Luzardo, Ranger Suarez is really going to give up that many runs to anybody but the top tier teams. So I don't know. I expect them to go pretty far. The other one is Mexico. Mexico also has really good pitching, but if I go to their roster, I don't think that people realize that. I think the consensus is that Mexico is like decent at baseball, but unless I see it being the US and Mexico coming out of that pool. So I think they have Colombia, Canada, and one other team I'm missing in Pool C. But
one of the
qualifiers. It says qualifier 3.
This would be Pool C for the tournament. Let me see.
Yeah, who's qualifier
Great
C?
Britain.
Okay.
Great Britain, yes.
There we go. Yep, there they are.
So
I actually like Colombia. I feel like Colombia is like under the radar. They were really exciting last time, and they just got stuck with the US and the DR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me look at their team so far. I do like Colombia, and they're still waiting on some commitments as well. Colombia has Gio Urshela, Harold Ramirez, Ramirez, Donovan Solano, and then they have 3 catchers already, which is interesting because they don't have like many other position players, but they have all 3 of their catchers. They have Jorge Alfaro, Elias Diaz, and Sandy Leon. So, I mean, those are all. Not every team's gonna have like a full field of MLB players, and Colombia does. So I think they're pretty underrated.
Yeah,
I think I don't. Obviously, I don't know where the knowledge level of whoever's listening to this is. Some of these names don't sound that impressive if you're just like an MLB fan. Like Jesus Luzardo, I think was kind of bad last year. But a lot of these teams that aren't the United States or, the Dominican Republic are filled out with, AAA, like AA level guys. And against somebody like Jesus Luzardo, those guys are going to have a lot harder time than like Bryce Harper would. So, somebody like Luzardo or these catchers that you just named who aren't like, stars at the major league level, their impact should be amplified in this sort of setting. So that's why, we're talking about people like Sandy Leon.
Normally wouldn't make an appearance on this podcast.
I'm sure he's a very nice guy.
That's good to call out because I think that when people see like the DR in the US, they assume like every team is going to have like names that they recognize. But that's definitely the exception. That's not the rule to this tournament. So,
that's kind of what makes it fun,
Oh yeah, I love it.
Well, and the thing is too, is I'm glad to see more like fringe major league guys committing because like Israel, obviously I followed a lot last time and they made a Cinderella run with a bunch of ex big leaguers like Sam Fold, Mike Davis and stuff.
Dude,
and then
my boy Nate Fryman.
Nate Fryman, right. And then a lot of like minor league guys. So I'm really glad to see like obviously if you're Israel, you want Fried and you want Bregman, but it's also really good to see like a guy like Danny Valencia. I don't know if he committed, but like I know he played for them in the past. Or like Jake Bird on the Rockies. I didn't know who that was before he committed, but I was like, that's a major league. Like they didn't have a Jake Bird last time. They didn't have Richard Blyer last time. So like just that, I feel like really upgrades the talent pool because every team is starting to get guys like that. Like Harold Ramirez is like, okay, in the majors, but if he's facing off against like Great Britain, he's probably going to rake,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, you look at like, as an example, like, for the 8 people who watched the qualifier games, like Spain was a behemoth in their qualifier pool. And the best player on their team was like Angel Beltre. And
Noel V. Marte, who hasn't even made it to the majors. Like he's like 18 or something.
Yeah. And they were talking about like what a beast this guy is. So like, dude, I don't think the Czechs are going to be able to get him out, man. And this dude's in like AA. But then the best part was the Czech Republic beat them.
Yeah, I love that. I hope that even with all the lack of marketing that the MLB tries to highlight team like the Czech Republic, because it's just I feel like it was so improbable for them to get past Spain, and the fact that they're going to be in this tournament is awesome.
100%. Well, that really is. That's the perfect example of what we were talking about earlier, because the Czech Republic is a team where you don't know anybody on there, and maybe in the BBC they'll get a couple of guys, but like on their qualifier team, you don't know a single name. But they're homegrown guys. They a lot of them play in the minor leagues. They play in the Czech league, and like they're decent. Whereas Spain, I don't think Spain itself in the country has a flourishing baseball program, but they got a lot of Latin American guys. They had some ex-big leaguers, and that makes them like a better team on paper. And that really is the divide between how do you want to construct your team. I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way, but like that's what people are up in arms about.
I think sort of the Cinderella story there does call back a little bit to what we were talking about too, about like with that divide. A lot of the time, there's probably no reason not to do it homegrown, but then you see the Czech Republic does it all homegrown, and then they're like, until somebody wins, they're probably going to be the biggest story of the World Baseball Classic like news cycle.
Yeah,
because I think everybody thought they were going to be like, "Hey, good try, guys. You put up a couple runs. You really gave them what for," and they advanced. So we're going to see them on the world stage. It's pretty cool.
I'm so excited. It's so funny because people will tweet at me like, "Hey, who do you know that's going to commit to Czech Republic?" And I'm like, I don't know a single name. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I don't know anybody on that team. But that's so cool to me that we're going to see like all these new.
I feel like Eric Sogard has been involved in their program before, but I don't know what it was off the top of my head, but even
Yeah.
Eric Bogard would be like a coup for them.
Yeah, you know what? Lookout World.
Or from what you were saying earlier, you were saying I don't know if they're going to take these guys. Are they sort of like a holdout of being like, no, we have our Czech baseball program, we're sticking with our guys? Is that the mindset?
I'm still trying to get a feel for their team. I think they find a lot of pride in having a full homegrown team, but I probably used the wrong word, take them, because I think if there was the opportunity for them to commit and want to play for the Czech Republic, like they would 1,000% want them to play. So like another one will be Ryan Stanek. He has talked about playing for the US, but he's also eligible for the Czech Republic. And I've seen like one or two Czech baseball Twitter accounts that like say that they would love for him to play. So I think if they had the opportunity, they would absolutely bring them.
What are some other outstanding commitments that you think could be like a game changer? Kind of like people saying, I want DeGrom for Team US. Like, who are some guys, maybe not the US because we could just name all-stars, but like other countries, who are some guys still out there that would really change the landscape of things?
Yeah, well, we kind of touched on this earlier, and then also I just put out that Israel video. I think the two biggest ones in probably the whole tournament would be Bregman and Max Fried, just because like they're all-star level. Like they are going to be the best they're the best of the best in the MLB, at least across their career. So if they were able to commit to Israel, I think Max Fried in front of Dean Kramer and Robert Stock would really, really boost that rotation, just like a dominant starter for at least one game every few games. Bregman would be like the 3-hole, I would assume. So those two guys for Israel. So the last 2 days have been crazy with WBC commitments because of Cuba kind of dropping a bomb on us of like actually allowing Cuban defected MLB players to join the 50-man roster. Okay. So where I think that if you were to look at like my power rankings 3 days ago, I had Cuba near the bottom of the 20 teams. Like I didn't think they were really going to do much. And now I think they might actually be underrated because seems like a lot of their lineup is going to be rounded out by MLB players or at least like affiliated players. Oh. So I don't know. There's I don't think that like Jordan's going to commit. I don't think that like Yuli has had a bunch of it's all political. Like it's very, very politically charged. And even like a lot of Cuban fans don't like that these players are committing to play for Cuba. But we have like just today, Yoenis Cespedes committed to play for Cuba, which is yeah. So we'll see him.
It's fun to see him again.
Yeah.
Is he going to do what he did with the Mets and just drop himself from the team at some point?
And just walk out again?
Yeah, they go to his hotel room and he's just not there anymore.
Oh my gosh, that would be so
That's
funny.
My favorite Cespedes story.
So I still can't believe that that's actually a real thing that happened. Just walked out.
That's the kind of thing that you expect to read in a book like 30 years after it happened.
Yeah.
You know? Like
you expect to read that in both.
You don't expect to get it in the news the next day. But yeah. So what did happen with Cuba? Because I don't really understand. I thought there was some sort of law in place that was preventing something. I didn't actually look into it. But was it just the program saying, oh, you guys defected, you're not Cuban anymore? And then they just changed their mind?
So I think, honestly, I mean, just U.S. and Cuba relations are they're awful right now. So there's like already that any business between the two is already going to be a mess. But with the baseball team itself, like I think for years, the Cuban Baseball Federation has said no to bringing any defected players until in recent years, they were like considering maybe having players join, but only if they agree with our government. Like as long as they like promote our government, then they can join the team.
Right.
This is the first year, and just in like the last week, people are like, even Cuban fans on Twitter are like really confused by this. They are actually allowing players to join, and on the players' side, there is a Cuban Players Association who does not agree at all with the baseball federation. They're starting to join the team as well. So like just, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, Luis Robert and what's his name? Yohan Moncada, both just committed from the White Sox.
Really? Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out if they are like if the Cuban Baseball Federation is actually going to want to bring all baseball players, because from what I understand, a lot of these players that are committing from the MLB have spoken out against the government in Cuba. So I don't know what their line is now.
Right.
But it seems like now they're allowing them to play. There are a lot of players that still don't want to represent that country because a lot of that money just funnels into the government, the money that the team makes, the federation makes. So it's all so politically charged, and like even Cubans don't agree on what the team should do. But I just hope that this doesn't create like this big rift between players in the MLB, like Luis Robert going to like Yuli Gurriel and them like having conflict and never talking because one of them wanted to represent and the other one didn't.
Right.
I don't know what those relations look like, but it's going to be really interesting because now Cuba's looking pretty good, like their team.
Right.
Yeah, that is a very confusing situation, and it is just a one-off because no other country has that problem. You know, it just is the guy willing. So what do you think? Because we talked about this earlier about how the U.S. people didn't care. Players, I mean, didn't care. What do you think has changed? Is it just that the U.S. won and now people like want to be part of it, or like what do you think has changed about the WBC?
Specifically with Team USA?
Yeah, I feel like overall it's probably changing. Not Japan, they were always good, but I feel like every country's starting to get the best of the best, but the U.S. in particular. Like, what do you think is making it more desirable, I guess, for these guys?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm like inclined to believe that it is because of the US winning the tournament, that they're like, oh shoot, like this is something that we won, that we can enjoy to like watch from a fan standpoint. I would say for specifically Team USA, Mike Trout's commitment changed a lot because he was the first player to commit, and after that we saw a flood of other like top all-star MVP caliber players commit. So when Mike Trout came out and said like, hey, awesome, like 2017, this looks like a fun thing, but I'm not going to play. I think it's best for me to just like stick to spring training. There was still this like sense of, well, I mean, this is a cool tournament, but we don't have the best, so we're not going to really take it seriously. And then when Mike Trout came out and said, actually, I did regret not playing in 2017. I wish I would have played, and I'm going to play this year. That was when everybody was like, oh shoot, now we're going to have like the team that we always knew that we could. And I personally believe that other teams are realizing like, okay, well now we have to like keep up with them.
Right.
So whereas the DR, that's never a problem. Japan, that's never been a problem. They're always going to bring their best anyways. Korea, but I think that a lot of the teams that have been all sort of on the fringe or have brought most of their good players, now it's like they want to compete.
Yeah, now they have to put a push on.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and you can actually see like I don't want to say like the pressure's getting to them, but like Japan and Korea and places like that have well-established, super successful baseball programs. It was always NPB guys playing for Japan, and they were always good. There's nothing wrong with that. And same thing with KBO. But now you can see Japan was like, okay, let's reach out to these MLB guys because they might be a little bit better. And I think Korea reached out to like Tommy Edman and Mitch White and guys like that, and they were like, let's just get the best guys we can get because the U.S. is like a juggernaut. I'm
so glad you brought that up because that, along with, I think the two biggest storylines, this is like an unprecedented WBC so far because we have Cuban MLB players that are probably going to play for Team Cuba, which we've never seen, and then Japan, who has decades of team like international history. They've been playing as a Team Japan for much longer than the WBC. They've never had a player on their team that was born outside of Japan, and now they are like, they've added both Stephen Kwan and Lars Nootbaar to their 50-man roster, which are like names that I think casual baseball fans are like, oh, I thought the NPB had much better players than like Lars Nootbaar, but both of those guys are solid players. And I mean, Stephen Kwan had a heck of a rookie season. But those are both guys. The fact that they're even considering adding them to the roster is totally unprecedented in like Japanese team Samurai Japan history. So Same with Korea. Like they added Tommy Edmond to the 50 man. So I think you're right. The pressure is really getting to a lot of different teams, and Japan, like their fans are for the most part supportive. A lot of fans are still like, oh, I don't know how I feel about adding these players.
Right.
But once they see like their team is going to be like more well-rounded and compete at a higher level, I think that everybody's going to be on board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, winning cures all. I feel like if these guys,
Yeah,
that's fine.
Totally.
yeah.
Which is absolutely fine.
I mean, Japan is one of those teams that you expect to go to, like, they're probably going to be one of like the last 4 teams standing.
Yeah.
They're always really good. So
I think that everybody talks about on English speaking Twitter, it's the US and the DR, but Japan is right there with them. It's those top 3 teams. Like Japan has won the tournament twice. No other team has won twice. And they will always bring their best players no matter what. And they worked together better as a team, better than any other country because they play together so often.
Mm-hmm.
So like they have a bunch of friendlies. Like I think they just played against Australia last week in a friendly, just because they can.
It's a little bit of a mismatch, but okay.
Yeah.
I saw that.
That's like, hey, yeah, I was trying to warm up for
practice.
this heavyweight fight that I had. So I got my 3-year-old son in the ring.
Yeah.
I just beat him down. Everything was fine.
But even a country like Australia, and that's another good example of a country they have their own domestic league. They have some guys like Liam Hendricks, but like they're not on the level of the US, and they're not even on the level of Colombia, right? Because Colombia is kind of like a mid-tier. Australia's a little below that.
Yeah.
But you can see that, and I don't know if this is WBC related. I don't live in Australia, but you can see that baseball is growing, and you can see the league is growing because, like, before the pandemic, because that kind of ruined everything. But before that, their ABL season, Australian Baseball League, they had like Manny Ramirez commit to come play down there. And Francisco Alvarez, a top prospect in baseball, was set to go down and play, and then the pandemic ruined that. But like, that's huge, that kind of thing. Obviously, that Australian, you know what I mean? Like that's not Team Australia, but like that's showing that like the game's growing, and I think that's good. And I feel
didn't Korea commit a team to play in the ABL too?
They have a Korean farm team. Sorry, now I really like the ABL, so now I'm going off. But
I want to hear this.
They have 8 teams, and one of them is called Geelong Korea, and it's just Koreans, and it's like a farm team. They send their young guys there to like get some reps over the winter, and then they go back and play in the KBO, and I think that's huge. And I know they've been in talks with starting a team in Japan, but my point is, do you think the WBC is doing a good job of that kind of thing, of just establishing fans, money, that kind of thing in these countries where it's not as huge? Like the US doesn't need any help, but places like that, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they're doing a good job of growing the game in a lot of these teams or countries that aren't like historically good baseball countries, or just don't have that much of a I guess baseball foundation. I think there's definitely like room to grow. I think about, so I mean, you have much more knowledge on Australian baseball than I do. I know that you just put out that article with their team, so that was a good read. I recommend listeners to go read that. But for example, like another country would be Brazil, who I was so upset that they did not qualify.
Me too. I was so bummed.
I love that team so much, and my wife is Brazilian, and so like we were like watching like all the games, and like I went down to Brazil last year. Actually, it was earlier this year. And there's just like there's no publicity when it comes to baseball, like throughout the country, except for like these small little pockets of like baseball communities, mostly Japanese, which we can go into that later if we want. That's like a long story, the fact that there's like so many Japanese Brazilians. But when they qualified, I believe in 2013, there was a big boost throughout the country in Brazil of just baseball, I guess people just knowing about baseball, learning about what baseball even is. Barry Larkin is like kind of heading everything down there. He's like really committed to growing Brazilian baseball. So I think there's like, once a team qualifies for the WBC, it's the same as like the World Cup. If your team qualifies for the World Cup, the next couple of years, there's a huge influx of resources and money that normally follows,
Right.
because it's just like, oh, now they're on the global stage. Like, people are watching this team, people recognize it.
So is that a like a governmental decision? Because I remember one of the things that one of the Greek guys was telling me was that Greece doesn't care because it's not an Olympic sport. So when Greece held the Olympics in 2004, it kind of helped because it was in Athens. The government was like, okay, we want to be good at everything because the Olympics are here. So they gave us some,
Right.
and people cared. And now that baseball's out of the Olympics, Greece is like, well, we don't care because we just care about the Olympics. We don't care about the WBC. So is it a government decision? Like if Brazil qualifies, then the government's like, okay, go ahead, here's some money, or is it different for everybody?
I'm not sure. I think it is different for everyone. I'm not sure if there are like funds that the MLB has like allocated to teams that qualify, or like teams that go to a certain, like, I guess, how far they go in the tournament. I think for Brazil specifically, there was, I think in the maybe like 2010 or so, give or take a year or two, the MLB did like send a group of people to kind of start like a baseball camp, or like a almost like a scouting slash like training camp that is affiliated with the MLB. That kind of faded away after they didn't qualify in 2017. But I think it just depends on the country. Yeah.
Okay. So here's another question I have, and I read an article, and I thought this was hysterical. I don't know if this is true, but I read an article saying that Barry Larkin is in charge of baseball Brazil. What I don't know what the umbrella term is,
Yeah.
but he's in charge of that, and they were basically drawing these connections between saying Barry Larkin doesn't have any connection to Brazil. Barry Larkin's not from Brazil. He like there's no reason that he should care. But all of a sudden, he took this job, and then his daughter started to have like her singing career on all these Brazilian commercials. I don't know if that's true. This is all alleged. I don't want to get Barry Larkin, but if that's true, I actually kind of love it because I don't know if that's illegal. Like, I don't know what like the ramifications of that are, but if it's just Brazil pulling out all the stops, going, we want Barry Larkin, whatever we got to do.
Yeah.
I love that. You know what I mean?
I love it too. I don't know what came first, whether it was Barry Larkin or his daughter, like being in Brazil. I know they both kind of happened at the same time. But I mean, I love it. Steve Finley was the manager this year for qualifiers because Barry Larkin was.
Oh,
I
really?
forgot what he was. Yeah.
He's
What was he
probably
doing?
busy pursuing her singing career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was
Probably.
he was
Well,
in deep
So
negotiations
that's
at the
what I was
time.
going to ask about because Barry Larkin, okay, maybe it was just a I don't want to say bribe, but maybe it was just a that kind of thing. But also it could be maybe his daughter started a singing career down there. He fell in love with Brazil. Who knows? But also Dante Bichette, his wife's Brazilian son, and he was involved. Bo Bichette played in 2017 for them. Like you said, Steve Finley's the manager. I think LaTroy Hawkins coaches for them.
Yep.
Tim and Christian Lopes are MLB guys. Like they have for a country that, like you said, doesn't have a lot of baseball engagement, didn't qualify. I feel like they have a ton of like MLB engagement. And another country that did this that I think is so weird is New Zealand, because New Zealand's never had a big leaguer.
Yeah.
They don't have like really a good team, but their coaching staff is always loaded with big leaguers. And I don't understand what the connection is. Obviously, somebody in a high place has some sort of connections, but every single time New Zealand has like big leaguers on their coaching staff. So like, what do you think the deal is there with Brazil? I don't know if you know about New Zealand, but Brazil, you're talking about like, what do you think's going on there that like the infrastructure's in place? It's just the talent on the field that hasn't quite
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know much about like the New Zealand team or their federation, but with Brazil, I've also kind of wondered this. I wonder if it is just like seeing the potential that there is, like the potential market that you could have in Brazil. Brazil is massive,
right.
and there are freakish athletes across the country. Everyone that plays soccer mostly, but then like all of these other athletes that are like maybe not quite as good to make the top soccer team or to make like the national team. They just like everybody plays soccer. All of these athletes that now don't do anything. They don't play because they're not good enough to play for the soccer league there, but they don't have any other sport that they really commit to. And so I think that maybe the MLB was just like, well, that's the biggest country in South America, totally untapped when it comes to baseball like presence. So let's just send a couple MLB players and like baseball minds to go try to grow it. That's my
Right.
guess, is that they were just like, I see this massive country, no one likes baseball, so let's make them like baseball.
Right. Now
In
here's
like a part of the world where, it's not like there's no baseball presence in South America and Central America and such. So you would think, Brazil is a pretty obvious, like, oh, why don't we try to tap this market? Because I
Yeah.
think, what is it, the fifth largest country in the world by
Yeah, it's
population or
massive.
something? Like, even if you get like, oh, just a little bit of
you get
engagement, like,
10% of Brazil, that's massive. So here's
yeah,
my question.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think that works? Because the way I always think about it, and I think it's wonderful that they're getting Barry Larkin to go down there and do stuff. But the way I think about it is if Australia sent a bunch of rugby superstars to the US, I don't think I would care still. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe little kids you could get more involved, and that's the goal. But like, do you think that works? Just sending Barry Larkin down and going, he's a Hall of Famer. Listen, like, does that work?
I think normally no. I don't think that there's like, if you don't know what baseball is, then you have no idea who Barry Larkin is. Like
Right.
that's not a name that is gonna like ring a bell, like Tom Brady. Like people know who Tom Brady is in Brazil. Like he was married to like the most famous Brazilian celebrity pretty much ever, Giselle.
right. And he
But
was a guy who had $650 million until recently.
Right.
yep, exactly. So like the big names, sure, they'll know football. They'll know like, I don't know, maybe they'll know Derek Jeter. But other than like they're not going to know Barry Larkin. The only
Right.
reason I think that it might work in Brazil is because there is that Japanese population. Outside of Japan, the biggest Japanese community is in Brazil. I forgot what it is, like a couple million Japanese. The Japanese population in Brazil, there's like 1.5 million Japanese descent Brazilians in the country, which is the largest Japanese population outside of Japan. And so because of that, there is somewhat of a baseball presence, but it's very specific to the Japanese Brazilian communities.
Mhm.
So if you like, it's so funny because people that don't follow like any Brazilian baseball, I guess outlets, you'll look at a Brazilian roster and you'll see like all of these Brazilian names, and then you'll see just like a Japanese name like stuck in there. So like you'll see like Gabriel Maciel, Yan Gomes, Bo Bichette, Tim Lopes, and then you'll see like Bo Takahashi,
Right.
which people
Right.
are like, wait, that's not Brazilian at all.
You're like,
But
yeah, that's pretty clear cut Japanese.
that
What's
is
going on here?
clearly, or like Gun Omosako, like where they're from,
Right.
or at least where that name is from. So I think because of that, the Japanese Brazilian foundation that is in Brazil was really receptive to MLB sending their resources and sending their people over. And so I think that's that. And then also Yan Gomes was the first MLB player that was born in Brazil. And I think his first year was 2012. So ever since then, it's like, oh, wow, this is actually possible for a Brazilian born player to make it to the top level of a sport other than soccer or like volleyball. Right. So I think because of that, it is starting to grow a lot more. It's a massive country, so there's still plenty of untapped potential, but I would say it's working to an extent, but I just wish that they would have qualified because that would have boosted their publicity so much more. I think that hopefully this doesn't like stop the momentum that they had.
Yeah. Right. So the stakes are pretty high for qualification in this world.
I do think it's good though. Like, yeah, I am bummed that Brazil didn't make it, but I do think it's good though that Panama and Nicaragua got in, because in the other qualifier bracket, Great Britain and the Czech Republic were kind of underdogs, and Great Britain was a lot of non-British players, and the Czech Republic didn't really have any guys with name value. I think it's good that Panama can recruit some big leaguers and Nicaragua can recruit some big leaguers, and that's countries that have a solid baseball program to build off of. Like, I do think it's good that they've sort of balanced it out, you know?
I agree. Both of those are baseball countries. Like those, they actually have like history with having MLB players in from their country. I wish there was a way to have all three qualify, but if you had to have two from that qualifiers in Panama, it would be those two teams. Like Panama is actually pretty good. So
yeah, I think the first World Baseball Classic wasn't Panama's team like one of the better ones. Like, I think they had a decent number of major leaguers.
I think
know.
so. I don't remember their roster.
I think they had Carlos Lee, and he
Yeah.
was still like kind of an elite power hitter at the time.
Panamanian guy.
I think he
Yeah.
might be on the coaching staff this year.
Is he El Caballo?
Let me ask
Yeah.
you this, Sean. Do you have any insight into how the qualifying process works? And I don't mean a team making it through and qualifying. I mean, like, how do you get into the tournament? Because it seems very arbitrary. Because there are countries like Panama, huge baseball country, great. And then there's like Argentina, which kind of just snuck in there at the end, didn't have any name value. Pakistan doesn't have
Yeah.
any. Like, I don't understand when there are countries out there that aren't even invited to the qualifying tournament that probably would have a better, you know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, I'm not sure. That is a great question. I was also wondering the exact same thing. I haven't really looked into it like that deeply because, I mean, the last we heard, it was a couple months ago. It was supposed to be the Philippines that was in the qualifiers, and then Argentina was just like, actually, no. Now this team is in, not
Right.
the Philippines.
And there was no communication on what happened. Like it wasn't like, oh, there wasn't enough money or they did something wrong. You know what I mean? And the Philippines would have been cool because like they had Tim Tebow and like
That would have been so much
that's
fun.
the story.
Right.
Doesn't matter who qualifies. Tim Tebow played. That's the story. You know what I mean?
I
So
love it.
yeah, it's very. I feel like there's just a lack of like transparency into the process of
Yeah,
things happen.
I
But
think so too.
I don't know. I don't know.
It could be worse. It could be FIFA, where there's too much transparency into what goes on behind the scenes.
That's right.
Now we know.
Yeah, the MLB isn't corrupt as far as we know. They're just inept.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they have the opposite problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, Sean, we've taken up enough of your time. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we didn't get to? Anything else you wanted to say?
No, I mean, we covered a good amount of the tournament. I'm trying to see if there's any other teams that we haven't talked about at all. I think we haven't really talked about Japan and Korea, which for Americans, like they probably know that Japan is supposed to be a powerhouse, but I don't think they really realize like how dominant they actually are. Like
Right.
they will never disappoint in an international tournament. But then also Korea, like they've really like they've been on the come up the last few years and the last few WBCs. I think they're really going to compete.
Korean baseball is a lot of fun from what I've seen. Like it
Yeah.
seems like they love hitting home runs and making a huge show of it, which is one of my favorite things about baseball. So
Yeah, it's pretty funny because there's like there's a big rivalry like between Korea and Japan. Like they have a huge baseball rivalry, but their styles are totally different too. Like Japan's very technical. They're very like small ball, more like detail oriented, and then Korea's like flinging the bats up in the air like we see in the like the Dominican Winter League.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I bring up a country really fast?
Yeah.
Can we talk about China? Because
Oh my gosh, I was just about to say China.
here's the way I view China, and I'm sure you know more than I do.
No.
China seems to me like MLB is going, the NBA made a ton of money off of China. China is a huge market. Let's get them involved. And just no one cares.
Right. Yeah. Except
In
Bruce
China.
Chen.
Yeah, it seems like they're just making no headway, but I don't know. You tell me.
There's this like group of different like a WhatsApp group that I was added to recently of like different baseball minds around like just different federations around the world that just kind of like look into intel of different countries, baseball teams and leagues and everything. I asked the guy that runs it. He said that they've like done everything that they can to find out every small detail about the Chinese WBC team. They can't find a single piece of information.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
I
it's
know
just opaque.
nothing about the team. I know nothing about if they have a roster. There was, I think the first little bit of news came out yesterday about the Chinese team. They had like some sort of tournament that acted as a tryout for the WBC team. So like I don't even think they know who's going to be on the Team China. I have heard nothing.
They're like running out of time.
It's like a couple months away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only thing you can speculate on is like Colton Wong, I think, and his brother are Chinese. I'm sure there are a couple other guys, but like I don't know if China has a baseball league. I don't know if there are any Chinese players in minor league baseball. Like
Yeah.
that could be my fault. Like that information could be out there, but like it feels to me like MLB is just trying to latch on to China because it's a huge market, and I don't blame them, but it just seems like
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's a much bigger baseball like following in Taiwan than there is in China. Like they have the CPBL, which actually a lot of people follow, even in the US, it seems like. So they'll have a decent team, Taiwan. I know nothing about China's team.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So China does have the unfortunate distinction of being in the same pool as Japan and Korea. So
Yep.
it's not looking good for them.
That's
We have Japan, Korea, Australia, China, Czech Republic. So the clear favorites, Japan, Korea.
It seems like China's not better than any of those teams, though.
Probably not.
I'm assuming what they'll do is like last time before they changed it to be a 20-team format. If you remember, it was the worst, like the team with the worst record in each bracket will have to qualify again and get kicked back into the qualifiers.
Yeah.
And then expanded it and went, nah, everybody's back in, and we'll just add 4 more teams. I'm assuming they're not going to do 24 next year and then 28. Like, I don't think they're going to keep adding to it. So I'm assuming they're just going to go back to the worst team has to qualify again. I don't see China qualifying again.
Yeah, China's back on the bubble.
Which is a shame because it would be really cool if they get baseball started in China, but it doesn't look like it's going.
I see nothing. I don't see any headway being made. Or I think you might be right that the MLB was just like, let's just try China,
right,
and see what happens.
I don't blame them.
Right. I mean, it worked really well with Japan. Why wouldn't you try it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Japan's probably the second biggest baseball country in the world, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I mean, the Dominican Republic loves baseball, but they're not a very big country.
Right.
Is real quick. So, how does Puerto Rico's team look? Because they were really good last time. Are they still looking to be like a top tier team? Because I haven't looked into them at all. But
so Puerto Rico, I think, is going to be really interesting. I guess maybe it's a little bit more of a hot take. I actually expect them to disappoint this tournament.
Really?
For 2 reasons. One, they don't really have much pitching. They have Jose Barrios and Marcus Stroman. And then after them, those are, I mean, in the WBC, that's fine, especially Jose Barrios could be good.
Yeah.
I don't know hardly any other like MLB names other than like relievers that could be on the team. Like they have a good bullpen. They have Edwin Diaz, Alexis Diaz, Jorge Lopez, Michael Givens, but they don't have any starting pitching really. So maybe they just go with like an opener.
Do they have Seth Lugo start? He's kind of been like a swingman.
Yeah, he could start. I think he's already committed.
It sounds like they have good enough pitching to at least like get them out of like pool play, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Well, so the pool, that's the thing is I'm a little bit higher on Venezuela, I feel like, than maybe most. And the pool is Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Israel, and Nicaragua.
Oh, okay.
So that's what people are calling like the group of death.
Yeah, that's tough. That's like, honestly, any of those teams could compete,
Yeah.
Even Nicaragua,
I feel bad.
Wouldn't be completely shocked.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel bad for Nicaragua because they have a pretty good team, but just like having to go against all those other 4 teams is brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, here's my question, because we both like Team Israel. Okay.
Yeah.
But I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Almost everybody on my baseball team is from Venezuela. And I like all those guys. So I feel like I'm going to have to be torn between Israel and Venezuela. Who am I pulling for?
Well, can't you just pull for both of them to move on? Because 2 teams will move on.
You're going to pull for 2 teams? What kind of fan are you?
Pull for 2 teams and then hope for a Dominican Republic upset?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I would actually, like, the baseball fan in me obviously wants to watch the Dominican Republic advance.
Yeah.
But then there's always like that, version of you that likes underdogs that's like, I hope the Dominican Republic gets bumped by by Israel.
It would just be a good story. Are there any other teams you wanted to talk about, Shawn? I know you got somewhere to be.
I got another like 5-10 minutes. So I guess we could just talk about, do y'all want to talk about like who we think will come out of each pool?
Yeah, let's do it.
Pool A is Taiwan, Netherlands, Cuba, Italy, and Panama.
Okay. I think Italy's the clear favorite there. Probably Italy and the Netherlands. What do you think?
Not Cuba.
Oh,
if Cuba's getting a whole bunch of major leaguers, that's
terrible, but not anymore. Yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah,
I actually think I'm looking at Cuba.
This is the hardest one for me to decide because of Cuba. I think I had them not advancing until all of this news came out because Taiwan will be on home soil. Like that pool is at home, but I don't think that they can match up with what Cuba seems like they're going to be bringing, and Italy if they actually get like more major leaguers. Netherlands is also like a very good, I guess, option to as a sleeper because they have all of the players from Curacao.
Right.
I got Bogarts from Aruba too.
Yeah, and Aruba. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I had to guess right now, I think I would take Cuba and Netherlands or Cuba and Italy. Right now, probably Cuba and Netherlands because I know that they're going to bring those guys. Italy, it's
Okay.
just still so up in the air. Like they have some good commitments for so far, but a lot of the commitments they have are like single A, double A type players. So
Okay.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
All right. So who are you picking, Ethan? Who's your
I
two?
still like Italy. I think the thing that interests me about them is they're really good at getting guys at the beginning of their career. So I think Jordan Romano and Brandon Nimmo were guys
Yeah.
when they were young, and then they were like, we'll come back because you guys like gave us a chance. And I think if they can get their best guys, I think I'm going Italy. I'm going Italy and Netherlands. I'm bumping Cuba.
Really? Okay.
Ooh.
But
Okay.
Italy has David Fletcher and his brother Dominic Fletcher, which is so
Okay.
fun. They have Vinny Pasquantino, Nick Lopez, Sam Haggerty, and then Jordan Romano, Matt Festa. They don't have really much starting pitching yet. Trey Mancini, so they're
Who's
looking good.
who's the Cuban starting pitching shaping up to be? Do we have any idea on that yet? Because I feel like that might be what decides it.
The cube pitching has always been the hardest thing for them to get. They don't hardly
that
have
sounds
any
right.
like major leaguers. Let me see. Yeah, I mean like Vladimir Gutierrez.
Okay, so
sure he's
Cuba's
Adrian
gonna have to
Moore.
hit their way out.
Yeah,
But they
Nestor
are gonna have
Cortez if he
hitters.
wanted to.
What was that?
Nestor Cortez if he wanted to play.
He's Cuban? I had no idea.
Yeah, he's Cuban American.
Okay.
You know what bums me out? I'm really bummed that Taiwan didn't get Corbin Carroll.
Oh, me too, man.
That would have been super cool.
I wanted him to play so bad. He, I guess, declined the offer
Right.
recently.
Yeah.
But
So I think I might agree with Shawn. I might go with
Cuba and the Dutch.
Cuba and the Netherlands.
Yeah.
It feels like a cop out because I don't want to just say what you say, but that like a lot of these
those
guys
are the
on
right
Italy,
answers. So
a lot of these guys
Right.
in Italy, it's like I wouldn't be surprised if they advanced, but I think the fact that Cuba is going to be pulling all these major leaguers, probably makes them the favorite in my opinion, like I said. And then the Netherlands has a lot of established major leaguers on their team.
yeah.
So you guys want to go on to Pool B? Probably the easiest one.
Yeah. Japan, Korea, Australia, China, Czech Republic.
Yeah. I think we all know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There are
Now-
two clear teams.
Now, I think we do also know, though, that a lot of people are going to be pulling for the Czech Republic, even if they don't have a chance.
Yeah.
Personally, I want the Czechs to advance, but I know they're probably not going to.
I think Australia is significantly better than China and the Czech Republic, and then the Czech Republic is going to be significantly better than China. But I don't think anybody can even. Yeah, I think it's going to be about.
It's just going to be like, what are the scores when Japan and Korea advance?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that one's a shame, and it's in Japan, so
Yeah. Which is
yeah.
So Pool
Huge home field.
C.
Yeah, Pool C. Yeah, there wasn't much to say about Pool B. Pool C.
Pool C is similar in that, the United States is in there. So it's really just who's the other one going to be.
Yep.
But this is a good one. USA, Mexico, Colombia, Canada, Great Britain.
This is a good one.
Canada could be interesting if they can get all their guys.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like if they can get Freeman, Tyone, if Soroka's healthy, you know what I mean? They're not going to get
Is Votto already committed or is he not playing?
Votto, I don't think ever wants to play for Team Canada. I don't know
Really?
why, but like in 2017, he was like, "No, I'm not playing."
He doesn't want to wear the leaf.
I guess not.
Well, honestly, though, that's not a need. Like they can put Freeman at first. Like they have,
Yeah,
like if they can
that's
get
true.
like both of the Naylor brothers, if they can get Tyler O'Neill, they could put up a fight. I don't see them coming out of it, but
Right.
more interesting thing. Great Britain, I think, unfortunately, is
Yeah, they're probably no chance.
yeah.
So what do we
Yeah.
think? Like U.S. and Colombia?
I think Mexico.
I'm interested to see what y'all say.
I think Mexico's probably a little bit better than Colombia. I don't think Colombia has a lot of like heritage guys, like U.S. guys to call on. I think it's gonna be all Colombians, and I think
Right.
Mexico can supplement their roster with the Alex Verdugos of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Classic.
I think Mexico is going to be better than we think, but not quite a top tier team. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So who other than the United States has the best pitching in this pool? I think Mexico is probably going to have better hitting than Colombia.
Julio Urias, which would be huge. And one of the things you mentioned on one of your videos, Sean, was that Roberto Osuna could play, which has been out of the MLB consciousness for a few years.
Yeah.
But still probably like 30 years old.
Yeah. Dude was killing it in the NPB. He's one of the best closers in the entire league, and like he's just been totally off the radar for MLB fans because of.
Well, he was really good too. It's not like he was ineffective and lost.
No,
it was
just all the scandals and stuff.
Yeah.
But so he'll be there, and
Colombia could have Quintana, Julio Teheran, maybe Luis Patino. Nabil Crismot is a really good pitcher that nobody cares about, by the way, on the Padres. Like he could lock down games, I feel like, for Colombia. But yeah, that's a 3-horse race. I don't see Canada and
am I correct in assuming that Mexico has a better like pool of hitters to pull from? I feel like the Mexican league's guys that I am aware of are all hitters.
Well, they are going to have they'll have the rest of their depth chart kind of filled out by Mexican league players probably, but they're going to be a full lineup of MLB players pretty much.
Yeah.
They already have outfield Randy Arozarena, who is Cuban but a Mexican citizen. Alex Verdugo.
Some MF named Randy.
Some MF named Randy.
Yeah. Some MF. Isaac Paredes, Rowdy Tellez. You'll probably have the Urias brothers up the middle, Ramon and Luis Urias. Alejandro Kirk hasn't committed yet, but he's expected to, and then Joey Meneses. So that's pretty much the whole lineup already.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a stacked lineup in the world stage.
Yeah, and then you have solid pitchers, right? Like Gallegos, that kind of thing.
Yep, rotation. You already have Julio Urias, Taijuan Walker, and Jose Urquidy. So all guys,
that's pretty good.
That's really good.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's why there's. I would say they're underrated.
You know what? I think that Mexico is shaping up to be the pretty clear number 2 here. And when we talk about it,
I like Colombia. I thought they were super fun last time. I really liked watching them. But yeah, you've sold me on Mexico.
Yeah. All right.
People aren't realizing Mexico is going to really show up, and then you have the bullpen of Roberto Osuna, Giovanni Gallegos, and then Andres Munoz, who took pitching ninja by storm this year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure they have a bunch of other big leaguers that we, like random guys too. I'm sure they can fill out a great roster. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Ali Perez, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Right. So now the quick aside here: is Adrian Gonzalez involved with Team Mexico at all?
Good question.
Do we know?
He's still doing the Home Run Derby X thing, right?
Yeah, I don't know what. There was some, and y'all might know honestly better than I do because I didn't really read into this much. But at the end of 2017, when they were disqualified, there was some controversy with, or at least some, I guess some conflict between him and the team and the MLB. I don't remember exactly what happened.
If I remember correctly, the way it was set up was since you only played 4 games or whatever, there was a possibility that you could tie, and 3 teams could tie, and that happened with Italy, Mexico, and whatever the other one was. I forget what the other team was. And so the way it was it was average runs per game was the tiebreaker.
That's what it was. Yep.
So Mexico got shorted by like 0.3 of a run or whatever, and Adrian Gonzalez was like, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why did we get disqualified?" And I think the WBC's only answer was like, "Well, that's just the rule we have. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
right.
I don't tell you." And I think Adrian Gonzalez was like, "Well, I'm not doing this anymore." But that was 6 years ago. He was pissed off. Who knows? You know, he's also not in MLB anymore. Like this would be his last hurrah. So who knows? I don't know if they like Rowdy Tellez is good. I would.
Well, I was expecting him to show up more in like a coaching.
Oh yeah,
thing. Because he's been out of the league for a little while now.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, he's got name value. He'd be fun.
Yeah, he would be fun.
All right, you guys want to do Pool D and then wrap it up?
Man, that's a monster.
Pool D's brutal.
Yeah, what people are calling the group of death, and by people I mean like the 3 people that actually like comment on my tweets. But that's like I feel like it's definitely the deepest. Yeah, they have Dominican Republic, who is everybody's favorite, honestly, to win. Even a lot of people think that they're better than the U.S. I don't necessarily agree unless we don't get any more pitching. But the DR, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Israel, Nicaragua.
Man.
Yeah, so this is a rough one. Who do you guys think is going to be the second team to come out of this pool?
So so we're all in agreement the DR is going to be come out unscathed, I'm assuming.
I mean, they have more pitching depth than like any MLB team. They have like Sandy Alcantara, they have Framber Valdez, they have and these are guys that have already just committed. They have Christian Javier. I'm sure Luis Castillo will pitch. So it's ridiculous.
I mean, right there, that's like you have frontline top tier starters like in your bullpen. I don't want to talk about Christian Javier. I'm not over it yet. But
I saw both of you had your Phillies gear on.
Yeah, that's dude. I don't want to talk about it.
that was
But
sad.
that guy was dirty this year, and then especially he happened to show up extra in the World Series.
Yeah, it really grinds your gears when you see like a 94-mile-per-hour fastball that people are just absolutely whiffing on.
Dude, I know. I was like, yo, I've hit 94-mile-an-hour fastballs.
That was, and it really was like, because we're sidetracking here, but everybody around Philadelphia was like, they had an amazing run. It doesn't matter if they win, I'm still be happy. And all that is true in the end. But they took, it wasn't even they got to the World Series. Like, it wasn't like Rocktober in 2007 where they got to the World Series and then just fell on their face. The Phillies, they had it. Like, you know what I mean? They went up and then I've never seen a team fail more spectacularly than the last 3 games of the World Series. Like, that was just.
I've just never seen from game 2 being on like an absolute high. Was it 7-0?
Yeah, game 3 they hit 5 home runs off McCullers,
and then getting no hit the next day. It was oh my gosh, it was
at home where they have been just tearing the cover off the ball.
The Phillies put on like their superhero cape for like a month and gave us this amazing ride, and then the last couple of days they just went right back to being the Phillies.
Yeah, they went back to the Joe Girardi Phillies.
Yeah,
it was like
I will always hate the Astros, and I know you know why. I'm glad you're happy, Shawn. I really like.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're happy for you. We're not happy for the Astros.
Yeah, I'm really happy for you.
I got so many of those kind of texts like, I'm really happy for you, man, but no one else.
Well, and I'm really happy for plenty of the Astros players like Jose Urquidy, Framber Valdez, great. I'm glad you have Bregman, Altuve, McCullers. I'll never.
Nah.
So to get back to, what got us on this, the Christian Javier thing. I mean, the Dominican Republic has the potential to dip into just like earth-shattering levels of pitching.
Yep.
Which, especially going up against like a lot of these teams are, still in like what would be termed like their off season, which was kind of a factor before and why like the United States used to underperform. People like, oh, is it because it's like February there and these guys are all out of practice?
Yeah.
When you have really good pitching, you can kind of amplify that effect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Dominican Republic, are we in agreement that there's a pretty good chance they're just the favorite for the whole tournament?
Yeah, I don't think you can bet against the Dominican Republic. I got to go with Israel. They did it once. I love them.
You go for Israel?
I know Bregman's probably not going to play. If they can get freed, that's a game changer. If not, they'll have to be scrappy. Who knows? But like last time, they did it with like Jason Marquis, okay? So I'm gonna ride with Israel. But I think objectively, I think Venezuela is probably the pick.
Let me ask you a
Yeah.
question. Have you heard anything from Freed
I
at
haven't
all?
heard anything
Like,
one way or the other. I know pitchers are more mercurial because it's tougher on their bodies and everything. And
Right.
honestly, I don't blame them if they want to sit out. Obviously, everybody wants Max Fried. There are also some fringe guys they could get that would make a difference. Like Garrett Stubbs would be a lot better than Ryan Lavarnway behind the plate. That
Yeah.
kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett Stubbs would be awesome.
Yeah, there are a couple guys out there that they could still recruit. So who knows? Like Moustakis would be nice to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think their team is largely what it is at this point, other than Bregman and Freed. So I think it's I'm really hoping Israel can sneak through alongside the Dominican Republic, and then who knows what happens. But
Maybe
they've
get a
done it
Shlomo
before, like
Lipitz
you said.
appearance.
yeah, he's fun. I wouldn't call him good, but he's fun.
He's so much fun.
They'll probably have a couple actually Israeli guys though. Like in the Olympics, they had a couple of Israeli guys.
Yeah.
On their team. Who knows? They might pull the corpse of Danny Valencia out of retirement and throw him out there.
Yeah, they're gonna dig him up.
Yeah, they keep giving Ty Kelly a run. I really like Kelly. I'm glad he's like an ambassador. I don't know if he's your best option anymore, but we'll see. And yeah, there's some minor league guys they could get, like Hunter Bishop and Jared Schuster were like first round picks they could get. So who knows? There's a guy named Max Lazar who looks pretty good. So I don't know, but that's wishful thinking. I think Venezuela is the clear number 2.
So who are the standouts on Venezuela? Just real quick.
Altuve, Sal Perez, Pablo Lopez. Who are the Phillies?
Acuna.
Colorado. Oh, did I say Acuna for the Dominican Republic? I did.
Yeah, Acuna is Venezuelan, so he'll be there.
Okay.
So the lineup could be Altuve, Luis Arias, Acuna, Salvador Perez, Andres Jimenez. Both the Contreras brothers will be there. Anthony Santander, Eugenio Suarez, David Peralta.
Yeah.
So
that's
stacked.
a good team.
It's not looking good for Israel.
That's a really good team. Yeah, that's
a stacked team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only guy that Israel has that kind of rivals, like Bader and Peterson, are good players.
Yeah.
And the rest is nice. You know what I mean? Like Kevin Pillar is nice. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think and their pitching won't stack up.
Yeah.
Do we have an early prediction for the semifinals? I think I know who I expect to be there, but I'm not the expert here. So
wait, what are you asking? Like who's going to move on to the championship?
Yeah, like your final 4. Let's not do championship. Let's not predict the whole tournament.
Okay. So who's coming out of each pool? Like one team out of each pool then?
Yeah, who do we think? I think that there's a couple of pools where there's an obvious favorite, but I don't know. It's one game for the quarterfinals, right?
All right. If I'll just go down the list. My 4, I'm sticking with Italy. I like Italy.
Okay.
I'm going Italy, Japan, U.S., Dominican Republic. So the favorites in Italy. What do you think?
Okay.
Go ahead,
Shawn. Who do you got?
Man, I cannot figure out Pool A. I don't know who I would take out of that because it's just Cuba has just turned that pool completely upside down to me, honestly, in the last couple of days. Like I had them at the bottom of that pool. I still don't think that they're going to have the pitching though to make it 2 rounds into the tournament. I think at one point it's just going to kind of fall apart. They'll be able to keep up with other teams on their offense, on the offensive side, but not with the pitching.
Right.
So I guess if that's the case, then I'll say Netherlands.
Okay.
Because I think that they have, of the teams in the tournament, they have one of the best like home leagues. Like the Dutch league is actually pretty good, other than like the top leagues like MLB, MPB, KBO. But they have a lot of homegrown players that are actually pretty solid. So I'll take Netherlands. I'll take Japan, USA, and I'm going to take the DR, but I really like Venezuela. I think Venezuela is going to put up a really good fight.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of thinking the same thing. Like I was tempted to pick the underdog and go with Venezuela. And then I just started thinking about all the pitching on Dominican Republic, and I was like,
yeah,
that's not even an underdog. That's like actually it starts to look a little bit like a mismatch when you look at the pitching.
No one's going to score. Like if Venezuela was in Pool A, they'd easily be my favorite.
Yeah, they would crush Pool A.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pool A, I think I agree. Netherlands. I think just because, I mean, the Cuban roster's still like a little bit up in the air, right?
Yeah.
And Cuba, like we discussed, not really known for its like pitching. So I think the Netherlands probably the safe pick there. obviously Japan, USA. And you know what? I think I am going to go with the underdog pick just so that when they win the whole tournament, I can be right. I'm picking Venezuela in Pool D.
Well, maybe this will give you some more comfort because, yes, the DR has some incredible pitching, but Venezuela could have, let me pull up their dream team. They have, so Pablo Lopez, Jesus Luzardo, Martin Perez could pitch, Carlos Carrasco, Luis Garcia, Herman Marquez. So like Ranger Suarez. So they have like it's going to be all very like known names in the MLB, none like high end, like the DR,
you know what?
But
You know what I'm going to say that I think makes me feel a little bit better about Venezuela is I think Ranger Suarez is a little bit of a dragon slayer.
That's true.
I mean, you see how he handled the Astros.
He crushed it.
Yeah. You know what? This is my early bold prediction. I'm picking Venezuela with Ranger Suarez is going to shock the Dominican Republic in the quarterfinals. Let's do it.
All right. I'll be pulling for it. That'll be cool.
That's so much fun.
Let's do it.
We've taken up way too much of your afternoon. Thanks so much for coming on, man. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I primarily most of my WBC content is on Twitter. So at Shawn_Spradling, SHAWN. If Twitter deletes itself, like it has been rumored, I did just start stuff on TikTok as well, which is just at Shawn Spradling. So you can go follow me there. I don't really post like baseball stuff much on Instagram, so mostly those two.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's do this again soon. Maybe during the tournament or a little before or something, and talk again.
Let's have a watch party.
All right, cool, man. Yeah. Your time, dude. This has been a blast.
All right, dude.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks again for coming on the show, Shawn. We had an absolute blast, and it was super informative to me. I'm sure you feel the same way, Tom.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, once again, make sure to go follow Shawn on Twitter and TikTok at Shawn_Spradling, SHAWN. He's a great follow for all your WBC needs. So we'll have Shawn on again at some point to talk about the upcoming tournament and what we think is going to go on and get some coverage of it maybe afterwards. That was an absolute blast. I'm really glad we had Shawn on the show. Anything you want to say, Tom?
I'd just like to say that I'm also really glad that we had Shawn on the show. I really felt that my knowledge of the World Baseball Classic, I felt like I was knowledge sponging all this information. But like, it really is like, that's about as close as to an expert opinion on this stuff as you're going to get.
I think that is an expert.
Yeah, because like we mentioned before, and I think we talked about during the podcast, like you'll get a lot of guys who are an expert on like one thing,
right?
And he seems to be pretty dedicated to just being an expert on the World Baseball Classic, like across the board. So you get like you're getting the kind of perspective that you want. Like in the beginning of the season, you're looking to analysts to be like, oh, who do you think is going to win each division? Who's going to, who are the favorites in the playoffs on paper? Like this, the stuff that people want to talk about. And for fans of the World Baseball Classic, Shawn is pretty much that guy. He's like kind of the only guy really doing that. So I think it's good that for fans of the World Baseball Classic like us, it's good to, finally have somebody who's kind of taking that bird's eye view of the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. You nailed it earlier when you said that he was the one-stop shop for World Baseball Classic stuff, because that's exactly what he is. And he does an excellent job of it. So once again, go follow him on Twitter and TikTok at Shawn_Spradling. And that's all we got for you. It was an awesome conversation. I hope we didn't take up too much of Shawn's afternoon. And thanks again for listening to another episode of the Baseball Podcast.
See you guys later.